talking to Anirudh, filmmaker behind Sabki Bajegi
Sabki
Band.
Bajegi
And
Band.
sorry, I struggled then. It's such a fascinating story to this, as you know, Anirudh. We've spoken at length.
Yeah.
Obviously, the people watching this won't know that we've had quite a lot of contact. And it's unique in as much as I know every filmmaker has a backstory to it.
Right.
But this was so interesting that I keep suggesting you should make a film about the making of the film.
Absolutely.
And it's actually hard to know where to start with you because can you tell us about yourself first and how you went from India to Canada?
Right.
Don't worry about the time on this because you'll be full time, so it's absolutely fine about this. If you could just start, introduce yourself, tell us your connection to the film, what your role is in the film,
Right.
And then if we can go delve into your background, that'd be wonderful.
Basically, I'm a RJ / writer / director. Basically, I was born in Mumbai, India.
Yeah.
Studied in Delhi, then shifted to Canada when I was about 15, and I started my RJing career as a radio talk show host in Vancouver, and I was really passionate about films and music. Because my own family kind of comes from that actually. My grandfather was a silent filmmaker in India.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, he was actually. So it's there in the genes, you know. I mean, the blood always tells, you know, as they say.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was there in me. And my father wanted me to be a good bank manager, perhaps, or an engineer at the most, you know. Those are the good professions in India, or maybe a doctor or whatever, if you want to be extra selfless. But
that was never for you.
No. I was too scared of the rats when we were dissecting them. I was like, no, I can't do this. And then we shifted to Canada, and then I think I really found my individual voice there. For that, I'm really grateful to go to Canada, because in India, we tend to have, unfortunately, a herd mentality, or at least till a few years back.
Yes.
Now, of course, India is evolving as well. But when I was growing up 20 years back, it was a herd mentality. So in Canada, they teach you to be individualistic. That's in practically most Western societies. And that's where I realized that I had the thing inside me which was creative, and I didn't know what to do with it still. I started with radio. I had a successful radio career in Canada. Then, strangely enough, I decided to come back to India, which were like, people go from India to Canada, they immigrate, and you went back. And in a very uncertain atmosphere, because when I came back to Mumbai 15 years ago, the film industry was still evolving. It was all over the place. You didn't have so many experimental films. So I restarted my radio career in India, became one of the top 5 RJs in India right now. I am.
Wow.
And then my whole film journey started about 7 to 8 years back, when I decided, okay, now I want to start peddling my scripts. And that's when I realized the whole film star system that is so prevalent in India, which is essentially that when you go with a script, you don't go to a producer, you go to a film star. So the film star,
which is unique in itself. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it'll not happen. Yeah, you don't go to Brad Pitt and say, well, if Brad Pitt likes my film, he'll say, oh well, you know, I'm going to produce it. I'm going to get my producer to call you and sign you. That's how it happens there.
Yeah.
That if you want, you go to a film star. If he agrees to be in the film, you get an immediate producer. You may get a financer. You get everything. So I tried doing that. I met a few actors. They loved my film scripts. But I did not, I must mention, I have never gone to film school.
No background.
And have never assisted anybody. So, for better or worse, this is what I am. So obviously I couldn't a producer could not entrust me with, like £500,000 of budget, to a complete newcomer. So I realized that they didn't have the faith in me. So I said, okay, let's do the second best thing. Let's make a movie on my terms with a teeny weeny budget, which will be economically viable for whoever my producer is. And most importantly, a film that does not rely on a film star. The content should be so controversial. I mean, I deliberately wanted something so...
Yes, we'll move on to that.
Yeah, so I wanted to be so earth-shattering that the content brought people to the theatres, and that will also give me some credibility in the film industry. So I said, what better than Bollywood and sex, combine it together. And sex was something which comes back to where I was working in radio, and I was doing a show called Uncensored at night. And it was a night.
This is in Canada first.
This is in India.
Oh right, when
I came back. In fact, I used to do a similar show in Canada,
Yeah.
but that was not such a big deal. But the moment I came back to India, and then I started talking about love and sex and marriage, Now, that became a big deal suddenly, and because it was a night slot, I was given the freedom. Surprisingly, there were no complaints about it. Maybe also people started trusting me as an RJ. They knew that I was not a frivolous kind of a person. That if I'm talking about sexuality I was dealing with it as a social issue,
Yeah.
with concern.
Yeah.
And I realized that Indians have all these pent up emotions, sexual, emotional. They want to get it out. Radio was perfect at that time, 10 years ago when I started, because in radio you can be anonymous, you don't have your face there, and you can still talk about it. So surprisingly, I started talking about masturbation and adultery and what are the sensitive parts of your body and stuff like that. And I started pushing the boundaries ever so slowly, seeing like, okay, which question can I ask tomorrow, without being too shocking, so like for example, I would ask a question, okay, which is your very sensitive part of your body but above your neck, I didn't go below the neck, so I kind of pushed the boundaries. And then I started realizing that people wanted to talk. There were housewives calling me and talking about their sexual frustration, how their husbands don't satisfy them. You had husbands talking about how their wives are not experimental enough. You had, women talking about that my parents don't allow me to even go out on a date. You had men talking about they masturbate 4 times a day. So this was interesting. And I said, wow, now why don't I take this to the next level and make it into a film? So I devised this film. Actually, 2 films I've made simultaneously. One is Sabki Bajegi Band, which is a fiction film, and the sequel, which is going to be more shocking, which is Balls, which is real people. So Sabki Bajegi Band was a fiction film, which I, of course, wrote the dialogues.
Although it's based on...
Yes, I must mention that.
Yeah, this is the critical about this.
This is really interesting.
Because you've been quite... it's quite thinly veiled, isn't it, I think?
Yes, actually the thing is, since I am in the film industry of sorts, I'm a part of the media, I have a lot of film industry friends, from actors to directors to models to socialites. So, and I have this habit of carrying my camera wherever I go and recording people's conversations, of course, with their permission.
Yeah.
And people in India, surprisingly, despite all the so-called, we think they might be repressed, but they're actually surprisingly, they're very talkative. People love to express themselves. They're just looking for that catalyst. So I would ask people in their conversation, okay, what kind of person do you like, or what kind of stuff do you enjoy in sex, and blah blah. And friends, it started amongst friends, and then just moved on to other people, and of course I would be careful of where I ask the questions. And then in such parties, I suddenly started realizing that people, as long as they realize it's not going to go into a public domain, they were quite open to talk about matters of marriage and love and relationships and sex. And then there was one such event where some of my film friends, they talked much more than they should have. And a lot of scandals came out of it, a lot of bitching about Bollywood. There were a lot of stuff that came out. So eventually I realized, oh my God, if I were to...
This is a light bulb moment.
Yes, I can make this into a reality TV show or a reality film, like the raw footage. Then of course for legal reasons I couldn't, because my friends were like scandalized, and even though some of them are pretty well known, and some of them would have become more famous because of that, but in India, this whole thing about maintaining the image is still there, people may know about it, that's cool. Like, you have a very, very famous film director who everybody knows is gay. He himself knows that everyone knows that he's gay, but he never actually spells it out. As long as you don't spell it out, it might be right out there in the open, it doesn't matter, but you just shouldn't spell it out, So you shouldn't say that I'm having an affair. You can be having an affair in public, but just don't say...
Be discreet about it.
Yeah, be discreet, or even if you're open about it, but just don't mention the words, It's like, don't legally commit yourself. It's as simple as that. So I realized that people want to talk about stuff, but there's still that wall. Mm-hmm. So I decided, well, I can't use the real footage. The next best thing, why don't I make a movie based on that? And it shouldn't be just about Bollywood, because essentially sex and marriage and love, this is common to everybody. But why not use Bollywood as a reference of film stars? Because people love to gossip. When we talk, our conversations, we'll say, Angelina Jolie and Brad, and the Tom and his wife, and the people talk about that.
And it's all out there because of social media.
Exactly.
It's relentless.
And because they talk about their own personal lives as well now, at least in Hollywood. In Bollywood also it's getting there.
Yeah.
So I realized, why not make a film using them as a reference point, also kind of revealing the hypocrisies and their double standards, and also double standards of all of us as people, how we will do something which may be terribly immoral, but yet when somebody else does something, we'll point fingers at him. And then I also realized that there is no such thing as immoral at the end of the day, because what to you might be bad is cool with me, and what to me is bad might be cool with you.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So I said, why not make a film about everything under the sun? You know, anything relating to sex, whether it's adultery or open relationships or incest or domestic abuse or homosexuality. Put it all into one big pot and just churn it, and let's see what comes out of it. So that's how, and in a very non-judgmental way. Now that was the fiction, that was the script part of it. So once my film was ready, when I started, giving my, I thought this would be simple because my project, the budget was just about 200 or 300,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Then I realized that there's this entire corporate film structure, which is again monopolized by film stars. They're the ones.
And
who,
families, you said the families. Is that right? It's very family.
yes, the film stars' families.
It's a very close shot.
Yes, and their children are coming down to become heroes and heroines, and even the corporate companies that take these stars. They're very protective towards their stars. So I started peddling my script, and they said, "Oh wow, wonderful script, but you can't mention this actor. No, remove this actor's reference because we're doing another film with him." Somebody else said, "No, you can't mention that actor. No, this is change the name." I said, "Well, then what's the point?" So eventually, I realized the only way I can get this film done is if I have an independent producer who has nothing to lose, who wants to make a mark. So that's when I found my producer, Yusuf Sheikh. And would you believe in 2 years it took me, I must have met over 200 actors I have narrated my film to. So imagine a 2.5 hour narration to 200 actors. Yes, 200, from the biggest, from Tabu to Konkana to, these are all known film names which are known, good famous film
2.5 hour pitch to every one of them.
To 200 actors, and some of them would have problems with the language, the dialogues, and of course the budget, the producer. There were so many issues, and then I said, no, I have to make it with people who are going to surrender to me completely. So that's why eventually we made it with theatre actors.
I remember you saying, and I think you suggested that the beauty of having theatre actors, there'd be less takes. It was done sharper.
Yes,
is that
absolutely. Right? Theatre actors, they know their dialogues like that. I didn't have to make that many retakes. So that was the story of my narrating it to like 200 people. Then I must have shown it around 50 producers.
Please tell us about this story, which is incredible. About where half the crew were holed up. Was it in Thailand?
Yes.
So because you were left high and dry.
Oh my
please
God.
Tell us about this.
My first producer basically kept me hanging for like a year. He was producing like 3-4 other films, and he put his money into another film where he was himself the hero. So he decided to put in a lot of money where he wanted to promote himself as a hero. That film flopped. Because of that, then there was no money left over for my film.
Oh.
So after 1 year, he said, "I'm so sorry," So I was like, what the hell, and I had left my radio show because I thought my film had been signed by him. So fortunately, I got back into my radio show after that, and I decided I need to have my financial stability.
It's a bit cast iron,
Yeah, it has to be there. Then my second producer, who again signed me on, now he was an NRI, which is basically a non-resident Indian from England, actually.
No surprise there.
Yes, and he came with a lot of fanfare, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to produce your film." And I had an EP, the executive or line producer, who basically decided to have a jolly good time in Bangkok. So he kind of cajoled the producer, "Why don't we shoot it in Bangkok?" And I'm like, my film is shot in one house. I don't care if it's Bangkok or Mumbai. I just need one bloody house. But he's like, no, why you? I'm, the producer's willing.
Well, send the Indian cast over there. We'll make it in this house. It's got a swimming pool or whatever.
Yeah, the EP was like, why are you caring? You're getting to shoot in Bangkok. And what we'll do is we'll maybe shoot a song, an extra song, and we'll kind of use that as an item song in the film. That's how things are done there. One outdoorsy Bangkok, Thailand, nice, with sexy women and all that. I'm like, no, this is not what our film is about. But I didn't have a choice because the line producer was the guy who had brought the producer to me. So I was kind of indebted to him for having introduced me to the producer. Now he had his own plans of having a jolly good time, so he bumped up the budget to like 500,000 pounds. So, and he told her, and I guess the producer was supposed to have that kind of money. So we went, we did our recce, we were supposed to shoot.
Found the house and everything,
Yeah, we found a lovely house, no doubt. But then when we were to shoot, so half a crew went off to Thailand, and this guy's check started bouncing. So I was smart enough to stay back, and my EP was greedy. He was like, no, let's just go, and I'm sure he'll find the money. And he went off and had a rollicking good time with the actors for like 1 week. So that was like the end of the honeymoon there. And this guy is showing us his bank account on a daily basis that, oh, look, my money's coming from London. And, it says this much amount, bracket spending. So I'm like, what does spending mean?
drinking, partying.
I have no idea. We still don't know what happened to that money. And eventually, the actors started coming back to India. But the EP had, obviously, he had booked the hotels, he had booked the shooting locations. So the EP in Thailand basically hijacked, or rather held hostage, half my crew there. He took away their passports and said, I don't know the producer, I know you guys, you're the ones who hired all this, so I'm not going to let you go till you get me back my money. So eventually it took almost 2 months for all those, the entire crew to come back.
No.
So they kept getting downgraded from a decent hotel to a not so decent hotel to like a really...
Like a shack.
Like a shack. And the assistant, one of the assistants who was there, he was a poor guy. He was, by the end of it, his hair was all over the place and he was like half hungry, and because he obviously didn't get much food to eat there, I guess. It was bloody... scary.
And you weren't there, thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And the producer just disappeared. He shut shop. He literally overnight, he shut his office. He went off to wherever he had to go. And he said, my money didn't show up. So he kind of put up his hands. And my actors had to pay like £100,000 each to get back.
No.
No, sorry, not 100,000, like £10,000.
Even so,
yeah, that's a lot of money. So they had to fork that kind of money to get back.
Who paid that, or did they not get the money?
No,
back?
they didn't get their money back, and the main producer and the main EP had to pay a hell of a lot of money to get back. And then what happened is all this happened. Now it's like, oh my God, now my 1.5 years have gone. Then I found my third producer who became my eventual producer. Even then, the EP now, he had been told by this producer that, if you convince everybody to not conduct legal proceedings against me, I will make sure the film starts soon. So he kind of quietened everybody that don't, initiate legal proceedings.
Yeah.
But then he was scared that if I start the film with anybody else, the film will, go out of his hands. So he kind of stopped. He went to the Producers Association saying, no, my producer is ready and you can't sign with anybody else. So there was this entire funny scene where we ended up at the Producers Association. I'm like, I want to start my film. This guy's not letting me. I couldn't make the film with his producer, and he's not allowing me to make it again. So he's like, taking the phone and he's pretending as if the producer's on the line from London. He's like, the London producer's like right now he's on the phone. He's going to get his money. If you talk to him, I think the line is spoiled. Eventually, the Producers Association said, okay, we've got 1 week. In 1 week, if you can get the producer back from wherever he is, fine. Others, you continue. Eventually, we started the film. Now, this is again interesting because by this time I was like...
Were you getting ready to give up by now or not?
I was now cautious about everybody. I didn't believe anybody. Even when the right guy came along, I'm like, I'm not too sure, but I want to make this film with you. So he then told me, okay, we worked our budget backwards. This is again something very unique to India, that first the budget was made, and then I worked my budget according to what...
to fit
the money that in his pocket.
Yeah.
So he said, I've just got £100,000. Can you make a movie in that? I said, I can make it in £20,000, but it should be there. Of course, the production value will suffer, and I will not be able to make as many retakes as I want to. Like, I'm not going to become a Martin Scorsese and say, I want exactly that, the same, this shot and this. Forget that. So I agreed to do that. I said, fine, but you must be able to release the film, and that's it. So then we finally had a small crew. We shot the entire film in just 18 days.
Yeah, I know, it's incredible.
That was it was scary because I had to finish every single shot, and you had like the last 1 hour, and we had would you believe the entire climax of the film was shot in one go. So that entire last climax, which I don't want to reveal, but basically, so that entire climax, the emotional climax, so that entire 20-minute scene, we just had the cameras rolling. And we were so bloody lucky that none of the actors screwed up. And they just kept rolling, and all the emotions were so real. There was no glycerin, there was nothing. And we didn't have a choice because the
clock was ticking,
the clock was ticking. The cameraman was supposed to leave for South Africa that same night.
No.
So we didn't have a choice. So the last 4 hours, we had to shoot 20 minutes of film. So it was quite scary. We finished the film, and then it took me another 1 year because the producer again ran out of money because now he finished the film, but now you need money for editing, for this, for that, the color correction. That took a year. Then we had to release the film. Again, he was into distribution, so that was fortunate. We were able to release it in about 400 screens, which is quite a bit in India. But then that was another funny thing because right before the release of the film, okay, now this is where things got really heated up because now we decided, because our film, we have kind of really, as they say, bajawed Bollywood. We've really taken their case. So our entire marketing strategy was targeting the film stars that ruled Bollywood, their hypocrisies about their love life, their relationships, and we were pretty blatant about it. We mentioned their names in the film, so you'll see their names there
Yeah.
in no uncertain terms. And because we were out there, we were told, like, essentially by the critics, even before the film released, that your film, there is a pressure to kill your film before even the film released.
Oh.
So we had nasty articles written about the film. Oh my God, how is this film getting released? It's so blatant and it's so vulgar and it's so offensive. And how can sex be talked about? In
Yeah, but
such
it's supposed to be good because it's good. This is publicity, isn't it?
It was. It, of course, yeah, it works both ways. It was.
It's like, hang on, we want to see this. What's
Exactly,
this about?
exactly. And the censor board went ballistic because the female members of the censor board, like, oh my God, how can women talk about sex? Like, they're like, it's okay if the man talks about sex, but a woman can't talk about sex. So we're like, but this is reality. Then we had a revised committee, which fortunately,
Yes, the second tier, isn't it?
yes, they were very, very, they loved our message. But there again, there was a reference to the casting couch in Bollywood, where we had mentioned a
Was that
couple of
sneaky? Yeah.
directors. We mentioned a couple of directors who we all know are involved in the casting couch. They're very famous and very infamous. So he said, well, I don't want you to get sued. So for your sake,
Cut them.
just cut this. It's not going to change your film. So we're like, okay, cool. And I was like literally crying because by then my film had gone through so much. I actually started bawling my eyes out in front of the censor board members. I would have probably touched their feet
Kissed their hands.
Yes,
yeah.
I was just so happy because the censors we were very scared about, because in India we're still evolving as a society. We are a deeply religious and conservative society, but unlike other traditional societies, we're also pretty liberal in a lot of ways. So we got our film out.
So it is becoming more progressive. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and we're not a rigid society. We're a democratic, secular society. So there is a lot of pulling and pushing because we have a lot of communities: Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians. You've got a lot of. There is the traditional versus liberal mindset is still there, but it's evolving.
5 to 10 years from now,
Yeah.
will it be radically different?
From now,
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Like for example, like I recently saw the Danish Girl in India, and there was frontal nudity, and they actually said they allowed it. They wouldn't have allowed it 2 years ago. And I was
Is it really?
shocked. Yes, they actually showed the Danish Girl in its pure form, and I really thought they would cut it. But that's because they do it on a film by film basis now, because they found that the frontal nudity was not about titillation.
No, it's there for a reason.
It
isn't
was there, yeah. There was so even in our film, like there was language which was pretty strong used by the women or whatever the men.
Yeah.
They said that this is pertaining to the film's message, and your film is all about conversation. It's not like, and that's why if you notice, the film doesn't actually show sex.
No, it's all
Because
talking about.
It's
it,
all
isn't it?
talking because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't want people to get distracted, because in India, what happens if you have a heroine in a bikini, that actually becomes the main publicity campaign of a film. Funnily enough, even after so many years,
Yeah, yeah.
watching a woman in a bikini or the lead couple kissing 5 times becomes the main PR behind a film. That will never happen in America, but it happens there. It's still that cheap titillation still happens on a publicity level. So I didn't want people to get distracted by the wrong things.
Yeah.
So then eventually the film, of course, got censored, and when it was about to be released, we found that we were having because there was so much opposition from Bollywood. Now they didn't want, they couldn't openly come out and oppose us. So there was all these underhand things that were happening. So our film was getting one screen per multiplex,
Yeah.
which is like a 9 o'clock show in the morning.
Oh yeah, I know. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it was like, who comes at 9 o'clock to watch a film in the morning, unless you're like a crazy fan of some big film star. So then I decided something which I don't think anyone has ever done for films. You do it for political causes, or Gandhi did it like many years ago for freedom. So I had my banners out, and I had my food, I'm not going to eat, and I'm going to be outside the multiplex for the next whatever many hours.
And social media. You use social media a lot. I
Yes,
think, didn't you?
absolutely. I put it out there that here's this the famous RJ who's directed this film, who's on a dharna, who's on this protest. He's sitting outside this particular multiplex and is demanding. And we had these banners saying, why do independent filmmakers get screwed? Why is there a monopoly of big corporate film producers and big stars? What happens to the... And I think to a large extent, even in Britain and America, you have your small films,
Yeah.
which either get released in small theatres, like artsy theatres.
They are pushed down the feeding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said, why not be the first person to try to make a difference, if not for myself, it would maybe set in like into motion.
Yeah, precedent. That will
Yeah,
help
it
others,
would
yeah.
exactly. So would you believe it? Within 24 hours, they were so embarrassed that I was this guy who's outside embarrassing the hell out of the multiplex audience, at the multiplex theaters,
yeah.
that they increased our shows from 1 to 2, which for me was a big victory. It might not amount to that much, but even that happening across the country was a big deal for us. And then the film released, it got a superb response. Now, again, we got slaughtered by the critics. So this is one of the first films that I know on record. Generally, what happens, all the 4-star critic
Are aligned, aren't they?
get into festivals.
Yeah, they're
This is the
aligned,
one
yeah.
film that actually got slaughtered by the Indian critics that is now going to so many festivals.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to Florida, we got chosen by you guys. So it was really interesting. That's when I realized there was this bias,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
even if they'd given me like 2 stars, I would have understood. They give it like some quarter of a star, and I knew why it was happening, because there was all that political stuff happening under the surface. And there, what happens is a lot of film journalists are aligned
Oh, in the pocket of
of these film stars. So they speak all nice things about them, and you know that. So essentially, then I decided, okay, why not bypass the critics? Because ever since social media started, a lot of the traditional film critics do not get this kind of importance that they got some years ago.
No, because it's so easy to just...
Yeah, because what the audience says is more important than what an intellectual
Yeah.
film critic says. It may or may not be interesting what he says. He may be speaking the truth, but what the audience says cannot be faulted because they don't have an agenda, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I said, I had this hashtag "Screw the Critics," and we kind of asked people. Would you believe there was this particular theater in Mumbai, which is like the hub of Bollywood. Like how you would have Beverly Hills, like right in the middle of Beverly
Yeah,
Hills.
yeah, yeah.
You had the hub of Bollywood. There was this one big theater where I would go every single day. Our film ran for 9 weeks,
Yeah,
which is a big thing by
incredible, yeah.
itself, yeah. And every day I would be there at the theater, clicking pictures with the audience. In the middle of the film, because there we have intervals,
Yeah,
intermissions.
yeah, yeah.
In the interval, I would just get up and I would say, "Hi, I'm the director. If you like my film, this is our hashtag Screw the Critics, and please, and be a SBB critic. These are the 2 hashtags. Please write a review of the film and post it on our page and spread the word." And that's what really got the film going, because people started writing about a film, and there was no agenda there because we were not forcing anybody to write.
No,
it.
it's just what they really felt.
Yeah, and we didn't even know that the people would go and take the time to write a review. How many people do that, to go and on social media and write about a film unless they're closely attached to it. So they went and they started writing about it, and people started coming. We even gave a few free tickets. We did this entire marketing after the film released, which is again unheard of, because whatever marketing happens before the release of a film, once the film is out there, you kind of leave it to its own destiny.
Yeah.
So I realized that, okay, I have this one shot at whatever I want to do. I have to make it work. I want to make sure that this film lasts as long as I can, that many more people should go and see the film. So I would go, would you believe, I as a director would go to shopping malls, and I would go to multiplexes, and I would go on the streets, and I would go out with my film flyer, and I would say, I would like to come and see this in my film. And they were like, "Who are you?" And they would think I'm some assistant or some salesman. I'm like, "I'm the director of the film." And they couldn't believe it. And they would say, "Oh my God, why are you doing this?" And they would suddenly look at me with this respect and shock also, because in India, you would leave this to, assistants. You wouldn't expect the director to be there out and about on the street. And that point, I realized that when you become a creative person, you have to own what you make completely with great passion and conviction. You should not feel anything is low. If I have to become a salesman, so be it. If I have to become the secretary, if I have to become, the waiter, it doesn't matter, because it's something I believe in passionately.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
shouldn't feel, oh, this is below my dignity, I can't.
No, because you've made it, haven't you?
I've made it, and I should have pride in it. If I don't feel the pride, how can I get people to come and see it? And even if I get 10 more people to come and see the film, that for me is a job well done, I mean, for me, that's the sense of pride. And I would watch there the people clapping at the right moments, or whistling, or laughing, because in India, the audiences are very, very, they're very
Vocal.
gregarious. They're very vocal. So they laugh, and they hoot, and they cheer, and it's like brilliant, They'll howl, and, stuff like that. So that was an incredible feeling. So that's what really this film taught me, to get out there, meet people, just go out, push the boundaries of marketing as much as possible. And that's what made the film work eventually, So
And the proof of the pudding is that, without revealing the budget, you had already quadrupled what you put
yes,
into.
we made the film in just £100,000. We released it, and within 9 weeks the film ran. It recovered about 4 to 5 times more. And that's not counting the other income which is now coming.
Yeah,
from,
and
like
things have happened
DVD
since then.
rights.
It's gone on from there,
Yeah,
obviously.
now we are going to have the DVD rights, the satellite rights. That earns a lot in India. So that's where a lot of the money will actually now come from. You know, so that's the additional income. But more than anything else, this film also taught me the value of good budgeting and good economics. And I realized that anybody can make a film, because this is what I wanted to prove to myself and to the world and to my friends, that if you make a film in a smart budget and you promote it in a smart way and you have a smart title. For example, even my title had to be smart. My USP, like the poster color, I chose red because red strikes. You know, it's striking. You know, it's kind of, it does. Yeah, it's crazily colorful. So these small things help in promoting the film. If your budget is smart, now after the film released, I have a whole bunch of producers lining up saying, "Oh, we want you to repeat the same formula. You know, we've got 100,000 pounds."
And they don't. Is that right? They don't care what you make the film about. You've got free reign. Here's the money.
This is the joke.
That's like a filmmaker's, filmmaker's dream, though.
They just want to invest, because you see, in India, I don't know how much it is here, but there is this fascination for the film industry. You're not so much, so I realize. There people have other good things to do in life.
Yeah.
But there people
They're
are
absolutely obsessed.
they're all consumed by the film industry. There's nobody, no cricketer, no scientist. You could be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. People couldn't care.
But if you're a filmmaker and you're well known,
you're an actor. You could be a TV actor, for God's sakes, and you'll be more famous than a Nobel Peace Prize winner, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to get in the film industry. So you have all these small businessmen who want to maybe promote their children, make them into film stars, or they just want to get into the film industry and they just want the right platform, the right people to associate with. So now that I have this one film out there which is released successfully with credibility, so they're like saying, okay, you make whatever film you want. Of course, there are the odd people who's like, oh, I want to promote my daughter and I've got the script, so you just need to direct, you know, and I've got a good budget for you too. So that I have said no to, because I don't want to spoil my reputation now that I've made a decent film. But yeah, it's like they don't care what you're making as long as you give them the returns. It's like a straightforward business investment that I'm putting in one. As long as I get back two, I'm fine with it. You make whatever you want.
So can you now cherry pick? Is that the difference now?
It is now. It is. And
so that's a great position to be in.
It is a good position. It's still tough, because if I want to get into the big league, I need to have a film which is so-called commercially more mainstream in that sense. So which is why I've also decided to make my second film is going to be a horror comedy.
Yes.
My mother said, how many films are you going to make on sex? You know, like she was quite shocked and scandalized by me making two films back.
But I imagine she's got to be supportive. She's your mother.
She's supportive. Yeah, of course. She's supportive, but she just finds she finds it embarrassing. Of course, now that the accolades are coming, she's the first person to
say, that's my boy.
That's my boy. Yeah. But when it comes to watching the film, she was like, no. And this film was still okay, but Balls is much more blatant, so she was more scared. And she was also very scared of me because she didn't want me to have any rivalries with Bollywood, because that was a fear. Because in India, things can get nasty.
Yeah, and they can shut doors on you. Yeah.
They're the powerful people, the powerful lobbies that can do, even sometimes in the past. Now, of course, the system has cleaned up, even physical harm. And once in the 90s, Bollywood was ruled by the underworld. You know, there's a lot of money coming in from Dubai.
But a lot of that's been cleaned up.
Yeah, that's been cleaned up by the corporates. But there was a lot of money coming in from Dubai and all these places. So that was a dirty time in the industry. So now things are much cleaner now. So now I want to make a more mainstream so-called film. Also, I don't want to box myself, because most directors tend to, at least in India, I don't know how it is here, but you tend to be slotted in either science fiction or horror or romantic comedy or action. I guess here the directors are more diverse for the most part, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, but there you get boxed in. I don't want to do that. So my next film is called Boo. You know, it's a horror comedy. Yeah. So that I plan to start soon. In fact, one of the reasons why I really loved coming here was because I'm getting to network with some fabulous people, thanks to you guys. I must mention that you all have done a fabulous job of marketing the festival, and also the way you've interacted, because if you all had not interacted from the beginning, I mean, there was so much love and so much affection for what you're doing, and that comes through in what you all are doing. So I wouldn't have otherwise taken the journey all the way from Mumbai to London. So besides the networking, getting to meet good friends, also collaboration for my future projects, you know, because thanks to you guys, I met this wonderful lady Kiran Dubey, who's also coming from one of the other films.
Incredible.
So that was like a reunion that all happened thanks to your film festival. You know, I mean, if we hadn't met, like I met after 12 years, and we started our career together in Mumbai as we used to go around hosting live shows. And she became a TV actress. Now suddenly I find her here in your festival, and we're like, oh my God! And she may, she was interested in my next film, so we may meet up for that. And so it's great. I mean, that's one great thing already that's happened thanks to this.
Thank you, Anirudh.
Oh,
fantastic
my
interview.
pleasure.
कैमरा बंद कर दे यार प्लीज यार।
कर मैं तेरा कैमरा तोड़ दूंगा।
रिकॉर्ड करना बंद कर यार।
जब हम पैसों के लिए अपना दिमाग बेच सकते हैं, अपने असूल, तो 2 घंटों के लिए अपना बदन क्यों नहीं?
मुझे दबाना बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
जस्ट साइज मैटर।
संतरे या खरबूजे?
हमें तो संतरों से ही गुजारा करना पड़ता है।
और मुझे खजूर से गुजारा करना पड़ता है। जब कोई आपके ऊपर चढ़ता है, तब आप ऊपर चढ़ते हैं। मुझे 1 लाख का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला था 1 रात के लिए।
What fucking double standards? क्या तुम मुझे गारंटी दे सकते हो 5 साल तक किसी के साथ नहीं सोगे?
सिड, उपासना तेरे साथ सोई क्या कभी?
What the shit are you talking about?
I really like you.
What a stud, dude! एक ही रात में 6 बार? What?
You fucking bitch! Randy, stud! Fuck everyone!
मैं तुम लोगों को इंडस्ट्री के टॉप मोस्ट एक्टर्स के नाम बता सकता हूँ जो अपने प्रोड्यूसर्स, डायरेक्टर्स के साथ सोए हैं।
अपनी दादी माँ की सीख चेक पर किसने किया था पहली बार मेरे साथ?
कोई आदमी किसी आदमी से कैसे प्यार कर सकता है?
Don't talk rot.
सारी दुनिया के साथ सोती है और मेरे साथ नहीं, क्योंकि
तू चूतिया है। Fucking unbelievable.
अगर तुझे सोना पड़े किसी मेल डायरेक्टर या प्रोड्यूसर के साथ,
बट नेचुरली किसी बड़े डायरेक्टर के दर्शन हो जाए तो मैं भी अपने जौहर दिखाने के लिए तैयार हूँ।
ओह फक।